Now we are live on Facebook also, and I think with Father's permission, we can start in 3 minutes time.
Yeah, we have 2 minutes, so let's start after 2 minutes.
Hello, Shubha.
Very good evening, all of you.
Good evening, Father. Good evening, Shubha ma'am.
Good evening. Good evening.
Technical
Can we start? It is 6:30, Father and Hassan. Can we?
Yes, Father, do we have your permission to start the meeting, Father? Start the webinar?
Yes, please go ahead. Yeah, please.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. We welcome you to this webinar to pay homage for the life and work and legacy of Father Robert Gaston Roberge, SJ, and we'll call upon Father to give his inaugural address. But before a brief about Father, because many of you may not be knowing him, although we always are with him, so we know a lot about him. So Reverend Father Dr. Dominic Savio, SJ, is the current principal of St. Xavier's College, Autonomous, Calcutta, and president of its Alumni Association. He is blessed to have got the Jesuit education all through his life from KG to PG. He did his schooling in southern Tamil Nadu and graduated with majors in economics from this famous St. Joseph College, Trichy. He did his post-graduation and MPhil from the epitome of Jesuit education in India, Loyola College, Chennai. And he got his PhD in economics from Burdwan University. Since 2000, he has been associated with St. Xavier's College, Kolkata, teaching in various departments before taking over as the head of this historic institution. Among many awards, he has received the prestigious Maulana Abul Kalam Azad Award from Government of West Bengal for his contribution in higher education, Mother Teresa International Award, Award of Excellence in Education and Philanthropy from BNCCI are few among them. With this word, it's my honor to invite Father Dominic Savio SJ to address the webinar.
Thank you very much, Manoj, for a nice introduction. Very good evening to all of you. At the outset, I pay my deep respect to the legendary Jesuit priest, one of the great film theoreticians of our time, Reverend Father Gaston Roberge. We understand that no physical program is possible at this situation. but that gives us an opportunity to have great film personalities from across the country joining us in paying tribute to Father Roberge. On behalf of the St. Xavier's College Calcutta Alumni Association and the college itself, I would like to take this opportunity to extend my heartiest welcome to the eminent film personalities of the country. Mr. Shyam Benegal, Mr. Adoor Gopalakrishnan, Mr. Goutam Ghosh, and Mr. Buddhadeb Dasgupta for joining as paying tribute to Father Roberge. We are very happy to have all these legends coming together in remembering Father Roberge. I also welcome our moderator, Mr. Saibal Chakrabarti, a Xaverian from here, for taking part in the program. I like to acknowledge the effort of St. Xavier's College Calcutta Alumni Association and Film Federation of India, FFI, for organizing this webinar. The topic of this evening's webinar is the life, works, and legacy of Father Gaston Roberge. The great film personalities present here will definitely throw light on Father Roberge's contribution in film. However, I would like to highlight some aspects of the life of this great man. I consider it to be my privilege to have him as our senior companion in St. Xavier's, Kolkata, for last many years of his life. We also had him as our faculty in our mass communication, videography, and film studies departments of the college. He was a guru who believed in the tradition of Guru Shishya Parampara in the field of learning, especially in subjects of liberal arts and particularly in case of film. Let me mention here that St. Xavier's College, Kolkata has a rich tradition of using audio visuals since the 19th century. It was started by another legendary Jesuit priest, Reverend Father Eugene Lafont, the teacher of Acharya Jagadish Chandra Bose, who arranged projection on a 12-feet screen by using magic lantern in 1868. We may say that Father Roberge also carried the same mantle. He also experimented with a low-cost visual medium for social communication by way of magic lantern for rural areas in 1970s, when large part of Bengal did not have electricity. Father Roberge was a French-speaking Canadian from Montreal. He developed love, attraction, and respect for India and its people since his formative years. He was highly impressed by Tagore's Gitanjali, and that might have been the reason for him to volunteer for India in general and Kolkata in particular as a young priest. Interest in film also grew from his school days. He used to attend all the screenings of the world's classic movies in his school very regularly. It might have been a coincidence that he watched Apu's trilogy on the eve of his maiden journey to Kolkata 60 years back, and that had made an indelible imprint in his mind. He also went to University of California at Los Angeles and obtained master's degree in film, theory, and arts. He also had a deep respect for the local language, culture, and people of Bengal. He stayed in Basanti, close to the Sundarbans in South 24 Parganas district, to observe the ambience of rural Bengal. After he became priest, he spent 3 months in a Hindu family to learn their tradition and culture. He read Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa's Gospels and was deeply fascinated by them. He had immense respect for Indian culture and always highlighted its high potential among cultures of various parts of the globe. Bharat Muni's Natya Shastra was another book which he loved and admired and termed as Natya Veda. Though he always had deep respect for Satyajit Ray in his young days, he waited for many years to learn Bengali language and get himself acquainted with the Bengali culture to have a meaningful discourse with Ray on his films. He met Satyajit Ray and became friends and authored a book on this legendary filmmaker. His association with Ray lasted till Satyajit Ray passed away. He founded Chitrabani, the first of its kind of a film center in this part of the country. Father Roberge touched many hearts, inspired them, who came in the portals of Chitrabani, which was created and nourished by him as an open-minded contemporary institution on studying, thinking, making of film, and having discourse on other aspects of social communication. He also headed the Bengali service of radio, Veritas, which had its broadcast originating from Manila and had good listening in West Bengal and Bangladesh both. He restored old popular Bengali Christian devotional songs in an album called Ishagiti. It was primarily for him that UGC gave its ABRC, later EMRC, Electronic Multimedia Research Center to St. Xavier's College, Kolkata, while all other such institutions are lying with universities across the country. He served as its first director. He was also in Rome for a couple of years. We had him in St. Xavier's as a senior Jesuit, a faculty in our film studies and mass communication departments, and also as a loving companion. He was simple, disciplined, soft-spoken, and amiable. He was also known for his wit and humor. Kolkata Jesuits were gifted with many fathers from different parts of the globe who loved Bengal and India, like Father Fallon, Father Antoine, Father Detienne, and the last but not the least was Father Gaston Roberge, who apart from being a priest, has made indelible mark in the rich socio-cultural milieu of this region and made a notable contribution in film. We pray for the repose of his soul. Thank you. May God bless you.
Thank you, Father, for your opening remarks. Now, before handing over the proceedings to our moderator, Xaverian Saibal Chatterjee, a short introduction to him. Saibal Chatterjee is a National Film Award-winning film critic, an author of a book on Guljar, co-editor of a book on films, and a documentary scriptwriter. He was a columnist at BBC News, Business Standard, Hindustan Times, and Financial Express. And he has a lot more to his credit, but over to him to moderate the proceedings from here on. Saibal,
yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you, Father Dominic Savio, for your very illuminating introduction to Father Gaston Roberge. I joined St. Xavier's College in 1978. Chitrabani was already running, but I did not have the good fortune of interacting with him on a regular basis But as I was growing up, and then I started writing about cinema. Gaston Roberge was a name we all knew, even if we didn't know him personally. There was an aura around him because in a day and age when everybody wants famous, everybody wants to be seen, everybody wants to be written about. He stayed in the background and influenced a whole generation of filmmakers and film watchers, and which I think, apart from shaping the minds of people who went on to make films, the most important thing that he did was he also created an audience, in Calcutta and elsewhere, by constantly sort of engaging with them and coming up with new ideas and exchanging them with younger people. And I think instead of going into length about his achievements and what he did in his life, I think I'll invite Mr. Adoor Gopalakrishnan to tell us what he knew about Father Gaston Roberge and his and also to talk about his interactions with him, that he had during his career. Mr. Gopalakrishnan.
Please unmute yourself. Please unmute yourself, Adoor. Mr. Adoor. Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yeah. Hi, sir. How are you? Hi.
Hello. Actually, I had only very few opportunities of meeting him, and practically I had no interaction with him because we met only at seminars and events. But I knew about him quite a lot because he is the one who started film appreciation as a subject of study in the eastern part of India, particularly in West Bengal. And like every Jesuit fathers we know, they have a great interest in studies and in scholarship. He had personified it. And the most important thing I while reading about him, I understood was that he made Calcutta his home, and he made India his place where he wanted to study things. He wanted to study about Hinduism. He wanted to study about the culture, and his erudition was explicit in the fact that he wanted every critic of Indian cinema to have studied our Natya Shastra. So that is very interesting because very often, even Satyajit Ray once, I remember, has written that.
Hello.
Very often, are you all right?
Yeah, carry on.
He has written that very often your films are liked or disliked for wrong reasons because they don't understand what you have done. Because it is very important for people who assess film, cinema particularly, to understand the culture against which background the film is made. Very often, a film is dismissed for the wrong reasons. And in fact, Patanjali was in the beginning seen as a documentary. Chatterjee and others were praising it for the wrong reasons. So it took time for them to understand. Even people who did not like it in Paris at the time of the Cannes Festival, it took a long time for them to come back and then see it and understand the film. So this happens to any original work. And original Indian work particularly, we are not that very easily accessible to the West. This is what I have understood, experience from my life. So Gaston Roberge has really contributed greatly, to this very fact that Indian cinema is to be understood against the perspective of our culture and living. That's very, very important. When you see a small house, thatched house, and you don't see any of the utensils or things like that attached to modern life, you tend to, the West particularly, they tend to not them as poor. What defines poverty? So poverty is something in somebody else's concept. As long as the person gets what he needs, he's not poor. So this has to be understood and told. In fact, in India, that way, according to their definition, most of the people in India must be unhappy. It's not true. In spite of not having all the accessories, all the facilities of the modern life, people are not that unhappy. People are happy with what they have. It's very important. This has to be understood. And our greatest contribution to the world culture was renounce and be happy, renounce and be free. This has to be understood. Otherwise, a film like Slumdog, the Millionaire, wouldn't have been made. It comes from a very wrong conception of Indian life, and we all celebrated it in the film as Indian life. It was not. Just characters, actors were Indian, but then the film was not Indian. So this has to be understood. So for the wrong reasons, we are appreciated. For the wrong reasons, we are also put down. So this Gaston Roberge's contribution, I think, is mostly in this respect, that he made our people to understand our own culture. He made others also look at our culture different from the different point of view. All this has been great contribution. And the number of books he has written, for instance, it's very interesting. He wrote books on cinema, on communication, and also on spirituality. Equating all this is very interesting. The range of his interest is very, very interesting. He was a model, as I can see, for any priest of any religion. He was a model, because like Vivekananda or Ramakrishna, there is a story about Vivekananda being asked, why is it that Muslims are with you all the time? You take Muslim friends with you when you travel. He says, the sannyasi has no religion. It has to be understood. It's very difficult for others to understand. So the proper perception of our culture, that is what he was trying to give us and to the others. And we wrote this book titled our cinema, our perception about it. It's very interesting. And I had the opportunity of visiting the place, Xavier once, as part of this group called the Film Studies Group under Dr. The Moderator writer in Kannada. So we went there to see the way the department was. Unfortunately, Gaston Roberge was not there. He was away in Canada, I think, at that time. So I did not have real opportunity to interact with him. But he has been a great person, a great friend of India. In fact, he was a citizen of India.
Yeah. So, I mean, the point that you made about Father Gaston Roberge sensitizing the world to Indian culture, and also helping Indians understand their own culture in relation to cinema, and also to understand India's place in world cinema. I mean, those are very complicated things in today's world. I mean, do you think that we have made enough progress down that road? I mean, of creating an audience that can understand all the different kinds of cinema that there are in this world and in this country, Mr. Gopalakrishnan?
I don't think he has completely succeeded, but it takes time. It takes time and effort to let people understand. In fact, I remember once at the beginning of one of my films, I was walking in the street in Toronto, and there was a lady, there is an open space where dance, Can I have a word with you? I said, yes. Do they still eat with their hands? I said, do you have time? I will explain. Then I gave her a small lecture. And I said, look, in the great civilizational progress of humankind, Indians were not left behind. Our food has to be eaten with hands. This is starts with the hands. Our relationship with the food and the person and the personality itself is very different from what you have in the West or in the extreme East. Some people eat with fork and knife, and others eat with sticks. So we eat with our hands. It is not something which is very backward as you would think. So I told her, don't think that we are left out lot, in the civilization progress. There is as much progress, probably even more progress than you are. She was not very happy listening to the report.
So let me go to Mr. Buddhadeb Dasgupta now. Is he here? Buddhadeb, can you hear me? Yeah. I mean, what are your memories of Father Gaston Roberge? I mean, at what level did you interact with him? Were you very close to him when you were starting out as a filmmaker?
Buddhadeb, please unmute yourself. Please unmute yourself.
Isn't he unmuted?
Yes. I still remember I met Father Roberge at Ray's place, Sati Ray's place. I was there. I went to meet him. And I was quite pleased to see Father was talking to Ray. We spent together some time with Ray, and then we came out. That was down and waited for a taxi. Just for quite time we had to wait for a taxi, and then I dropped him, and again, and that was the time I had to do a French subtitle on my film Buddhadeb. And before that, Ray talked very highly to Father Roberge about Buddhadeb and insisted that he must see this film. Quite fortunate that they liked that film very much. We were together in Venice, and Sati Ray was the jury member. He saw the film there, and the film got Critics Award there at Venice. And then I had to for the subtitling the film, I had to go to Father Roberge. I requested him. He saw the film, and he immediately agreed to do the subtitle. He did the subtitle. But I later found out that being a Canadian, his French was not exactly the French the people in France speak. All right. So there was a little problem that and I said, this is the problem. But he said, okay, I'll find it out. And if you need another subtitle, I'll do it. Or if you have a new film, I'll do the subtitle for that. It was that time I used to visit Chitrabani quite often, especially the library. Still think he was the base library on cinema during that time existed in India. So I used to go to the library. Not that every time we used to agree with the concept of cinema, but Father Roberge was the person who started talking about people's cinema. He used to say that the films that are popular, the films, that these are the his concept was that these things are very popular audience, common Indian audience. And we are close, became very close at whatever point of time. That time I was the chairman of Shatterjee Film and Television Institute, the founder chairman. He used to visit the institute. I remember twice I invited him and twice he came as a guest lecturer. And I invited him to be in the academy of the institute, but he didn't agree. He said, no, I have Chitsubani, and whatever spare term I can give, I'll give it to Chitsubani. I had to agree, but I can always see he was very, very nice human being. One of the finest human beings I've ever met. Then I was quite surprised. One day he called me and told me, can I send, if you steal some of my films? I said, why? Why do you need them? He said, I'm writing something on you, on your work, especially on Uttara. Uttara at that time got the Best Director's Award in Venice, and he was very happy. He was the first festival to call me and congratulate me in Calcutta. I sent him some of the photographs of my films, and I found out that a very big and beautiful article on my work at the Indian International Journal of the Journal of India Cultural Center, Delhi. I still have that copy with me. Then when I went back to SRFTI, Saturday Film and Television, second time as the chairman, I again invited him. I again invited him to be in the academy, but again he refused with the same answer. But he never told me no whenever I invited him to be a guest lecturer. I can say one thing, that Father Roberge is a part of Calcutta culture. He initiated kind of a culture, a film culture, which was never there in India before. I think one of the nicest human beings, and we were making films in Calcutta, and we have come close to him. We'll never forget him. We'll always remember him with great respect and regards.
Yeah.
Saibal.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Buddhadeb. I want to mention here.
What? Saibal, can you just spare 1 second for me?
Yeah, sure.
I have another appointment. Can I leave you people now and say bye?
Okay. If you have some work, you can obviously go. Yeah. Thank you, Buddhadeb.
Thank you, Saibal.
Yeah. Okay. This webinar is supported by the Film Federation of India. That's just to mention that there's the Firdausul Hassan is, if I'm not wrong, the president of FFI. And so Goutam da, I'll come to you. With a because you obviously would have you wrote a tribute to Father Gaston Roberge in a newspaper, and your association with him goes back a long way. The important thing is that you are filmmakers. You Goutam da, you, Buddhadeb, Shyam Benegal, Adoor Gopalakrishnan, you all began your filmmaking careers in the 70s. And Chitrabani was started in 1970, which is like exactly 50 years ago. And so as a filmmaker who was, and you were also, a photojournalist, you were associated with the media anyways. What kind of impact did Chitrabani and Father Gaston Roberge have on you personally as a filmmaker and as a thinker of cinema?
Well, Father Roberge was an inspiring figure for filmmakers like us, who still believe that you have to study cinema. You have to learn cinema just like you learn a language and grammar. You have to know about great filmmakers, what they did, and great trends in cinema in different parts of the world. The moment you learn more, you will see that what you are doing is not enough, and you have to improve yourself. This is a learning process that's never ending. This sort of advice was given by Father when we were young, aspiring filmmakers. And his knowledge of film theory is fabulous, incredible. He was a scholar of the great Soviet filmmaker Sergei Eisenstein's work. He told me that if you want to understand Eisenstein's work well, you must know the dialectics. This dialectical process is most important to understand Eisenstein's montage of attraction and so on. So Father was, when we started making films, he was almost like a teacher because he had created the first film study center, perhaps in India or particularly in India. Chitrabani at Buddhadeb said, it had a wonderful library full of books because, film books were quite expensive at our young age. We couldn't afford. But Chitrabani had a fantastic collection of film books and books on performing arts. And also, there was a projection theater and a sound recording room. So for any aspiring filmmaker, it was a great place for learning. Of course, I was not a student of Chitrabani, but I used to meet Father for his advice. And, once I really had a long discussion about Andhra Bazar's in defense of mixed cinema. I didn't understand by reading it. But for Father, it was so easy. He could explain me that, Bazar didn't discard montage, but he wanted to bring something for sound cinema, some kind of new cinematic space. So this is something, his understanding was fantastic. And as Adoor mentioned that about his knowledge of Indian culture, because, he was a man of social communication too. He wanted to understand Indian ethos. I remember releasing his last book where he wrote an article on Sholay and Beder Mein Justa, a Bengali hit. Very interesting because, he wanted to interpret the whole thing in an Indian context, in Indian social matrix, and also citing examples from Natya Shastra, one of his favorite book on performing art. So I have incredible memories, and also I was really inspired by his work, by his love and compassion for cinema and people of our country. Fantastic. I remember, when he was in Vatican, I think in '96 he went to Vatican for 3-4 years. We met in a cafe outside Vatican with a common friend of mine, just Pagnini, and he said, "I'll come back soon to Calcutta," because his love for not only Calcutta, India, the slums around the Calcutta, and you know, he couldn't go away from Calcutta, and he came back and stayed here till his last breath. And Father Roberge, you know, as and he's he had a tremendous sense of humor and wit. As Buddhadeb said that, you know, he did some subtitles, translation for his films. He too also did for two of my films, Bengali films, which were presented in Cannes. And while, you know, accepting that, you know, I'll do it for you, Gautam, he said, look, my French is from Quebec. Will the French mainland people will like it? It's like that, you know. I said, Father, you know, it's your mother tongue, and you also know Bengali so well. I'm sure that you can express the essence of spoken lines. And a wonderful person, and we used to meet at Fairlawn Hotel for lunch, and he was a great lover of sweets. Whenever you meet, he said, come on, have this chocolate, have this sweet. He had a sweet tooth. He was a sweet person, and a very compassionate person. And really, we'll miss you, Father, but he will remain forever in our heart. And you're a teacher, and you have shown in wonderful ways that go on studying cinema. It's not so easy, and you have to update yourself and learn more to make real cinema. Not, you know, just you have a camera, you have audiovisual equipment, and you make a film. No, real cinema. Recently, I had seen Theo Angelopoulos' 4 films in a row, which I had seen earlier. And I realized, my God, cinema will never die. This is something what I've seen is unbelievable. That exactly Father wanted to teach us, that cinema is something, it's an experience. It's a collective experience of mankind. So you have to respect the art of cinema. You have to respect also, understand the ethos where you're making the film. So these are the great lessons, and I'm really thankful to St. Xavier's College Alumni Association and our federation, and thanks Hassan for your initiative. And it's wonderful to see great Indian filmmakers like Adoor, like Buddhadeb, like Shyam is yet to come. They're all together in this evening to pay tribute to Father Gaston Roberge.
Okay, thank you, Gautam. That was a lovely way of remembering the personality of Father Gaston Roberge's stature. I'm Mr. Adoor Gopalakrishnan. I mean, I will come back to Gautam also on this with this question. You know, most film theories are Western in origin. I mean, they're predominantly Western in origin. And Gautam, to you particularly, during your conversations, did Father Gaston Roberge ever talk about the Indian context? I mean, in relation to cinema, I mean, he talked about Natya Shastra, but I mean, with Adoor Gopalakrishnan, his cinema is also rooted in his culture. Your cinema is rooted in Bengal's culture. So, is there? I'm just curious to know, as filmmakers, how much of your background is Western and how much is rooted in your own culture? Mr. Gopalakrishnan first.
Yeah. I cannot see myself making films, apart from, set apart from my cultural background, and I draw my inspiration and my material from the life and culture around me. So there is no Western way of approach to cinema in my work. Of course, the technology is Western, of course, but the cinema is in your own veins. In your own, it is
But isn't our education also Western? I mean, we go to a film school, you learn, again, theories that you learn are also Western. I mean, is that a problem when you get down to making films?
I had the formal education in the film institute, but once you come out of the institute, you should forget about all that you study. Unless you can create on your own, you won't be a filmmaker of anyone. So it is very important because it is like every other theory that we learn. We have to forget it at the very end and then start from the very beginning, all on your own, from your own resources, from your own surroundings, from your own upbringing, everything. I cannot think of making a film, even going to the northern part of India and doing a film. I cannot think about it because I do not know the life lived there. So they are all Indians. We all follow some kind of religion and culture and everything we share. But then does not mean that there are nuances of differences. Even with Bengal, Bengalis like us, we also great light eaters and great lovers of fish. But that does not stop there. There are things beyond that. In terms of commonalities. So I think when Kurosawa made his films acceptable to the West, they said in the West, this is in the Western India. But there was another person who was discovered much later, Ozu, who did not move from his tradition. There was this the monk's position of seated position, and from that he saw all the vision of the things around, and his camera saw everything from that height. Ray used to joke that he had so much sake in him, he didn't want to get up and move around. Just only a joke, but that was the kind of Japanese culture that had, that was innate in it. This is what happens.
Okay, Gautam, I mean, what do you remember of your conversations with him about Indian cinema and how Indian cinema can be more, it is at the moment. I mean, because as Adoor Gopalakrishnan said, it's a Western medium. I mean, everything about the medium is of Western origin. So how do you adapt your own culture with a medium that has come from the West? And what were your conversations with Gaston Roberge?
I agree with Adoor that Vesical cinema was invented in the West, and basic film theories were written in the West since the 1910s, 20s, and so on. But we didn't have that kind of film study culture in our country. Although, to our surprise, Narendra Deb had written a brilliant book on all aspects of cinema way back in 1934. It was republished and released by Adoor last year. So there was a film culture. You remember Adoor? Yeah. So the people the studios were studying cinema. They were studying different film magazines for their own benefit, technical magazine and so on. But purely, of course, great theoreticians came from the West, but also from other parts of the country. Later on in Japan, Tadao Sato, a brilliant, we met Tadao Sato, a brilliant writer. The question is, I remember my first exposure to good cinema was Roger Manville's film, a small book published by Penguin. And after reading the book, my whole idea of cinema completely changed. I thought, my God, it's something. It could become an art. But when you start making, you have to make films in your own context, where content matters, how you look at the world, your feeling with your own people, your own culture, your relationship with your friends, family, and so on, and our multi-layered cultures. Because, I think India is a very complex country, which is Indian film is also very complex. because we make films from different parts of the world, but sometimes we get confused with Bollywood. No, because Bollywood is not Indian cinema. Indian cinema is much more complex. So we consider the content and approach. At the same time, I think your technique very much depends on your culture. How you create cinematic space and time, it's different. As Adoor mentioned, Ozu, it's almost on a sitting level. So film style in Iran or in India or in Japan or in Korea, it's different. It depends on your culture, your perspective, and how you want to see a particular space. That's very, very important. So there is nothing called their culture and our culture. It's all mixed up in there. Ray's that beautiful book, Our Films, Their Films. It says everything. Very beautifully written. That cinema is universal, yet it is very much rooted in your own country, in your own soil.
Yeah. So, I mean, Father Gaston Roberge also wrote a book, Dole. I mean, Goutam, would you, tell us what he thought about commercial Hindi cinema? I mean, did he ever discuss it?
His understanding of the Indian popular cinema was quite intriguing. Whether you agree or not, you have to see why he's trying to analyze Three Idiots or Bede Mein Jyotsna or, for instance, Sholay. Because, he had a different perspective. So you may not agree, but he thought that let me understand the cultural ethos, education level, and, folk art, their tradition, how they get mixed up in Indian popular cinema. So he had his own research and understanding. It's very interesting that, of course, Bede Mein Jyotsna, why, it is popular? Because it was derived from a great popular
Folk story.
Yeah. From Maimansingh Gitika in East Bengal, in erstwhile East Bengal. Because, in that particular folk tale, all the elements were there of human passion, of human emotion. So I think, he had a point that try to understand that how all this emotion, they touch audiences soul, and audience, get involved, and considering our education, our literacy, and so on. So I think Father had a point to reckon with. Yeah.
So, but we'll for this question is for Mr. Adoor Gopalakrishnan. And you have talked about it at great length at different times. We are a country which is dominated by a cinema that is commercial, that is made for profit, but there are filmmakers like you, Gautam, who work outside this system. So, film appreciation of the kind that Father Gaston Roberge, propagated, and also the film society movement in Kerala, the film society movement that Chatterjee and Alumni Dasgupta started in Calcutta. Together, have they been able to impact the approach of the audience to cinema in general? I mean, what is your opinion at the moment as we in 2020?
No, there was a time when a differently made film had no audience. Today we have an audience. However small it is, there is an audience. And also you have a small sprinkle of film scholars and writers who understand cinema. They are also very few. They follow the mainstream
rules.
Yes, and because then they get published and then they get supported and all that. So there is a big plethora of the mainstream influence in front of that, this is a small trickle. Whatever we do in terms of educating people in appreciating cinema, is a small trickle. But then all the same, it is very important to spread this movement through film societies, through film seminars, through even today's webinar. You know, in some way, you know, by remembering, respecting, giving respect to this great man, we are in a different, in an indirect way, we are promoting film appreciation amongst the audiences. This has to go on because people should not talk about good cinema in past tense. It should be there should be a present and a future for a better kind of cinema. That's very, very important. Once in a while, I see young filmmakers, particularly those who have taken pains to understand the medium and make the film. When they make a film without compromise, I go a long way in trying to promote them, write about them. I do that because it's very, very important to keep this movement alive, a movement of cinema which is honest, which is relevant, which is not non-compromising. So it's very, very important to sustain that. And what Father Roberge has done is remarkable in his own way. Normally, you know, why should a priest be involved in cinema? For that matter, in communication, general communication at all. But he was a remarkable person. And I am a beneficiary of such a great missionary who came to Kerala and during 2 centuries ago, and you know, Edmund Gundat wrote the grammar of Malayalam. Can you imagine? No? Not a Malayali, but then this man studied Malayalam and wrote the grammar. He was a priest, but then again a Jesuit priest. No, it doesn't end there. He then moved on to Karnataka, studied Kannada, and wrote again the first book of grammar in Kannada. So they have been great contributors to our culture. It's very important. No, I know that things have been happening like that. No, we have to really be thankful to those geniuses. Very important.
Yeah, that's been going on since Max Muller, I think, or even before that. I mean, people coming from the West and trying to understand. When you talk about cinema, I mean, the situation is better today than it was, say, 30 or 40 years ago, because there are young filmmakers who are breaking the rules and still surviving, and they still have an audience. So the audience has grown, but maybe writing on cinema still sort of lags behind a bit. I mean, would you agree, Goutam? And
it lags very much. The writing part is very, very poor. Very, very poor. And unfortunately, the journalists and newspapers, they do not promote proper film review. People who have no sense about cinema keep writing about it. Because they, to fill up a column, you read that, it is so disappointing. Thoroughly bad films, they write so highly about it. Now then you start wondering what is happening. So there is a what you call an anti-propaganda going against the cinema.
Yeah.
This is terrible. I keep telling that wherever there is a forum for that, I think it's a very important function to be a film critic, to be a film scholar. It's a very important role. In fact, even more important than the filmmakers. We are quoting Andre Bazin. Who was he?
All that.
There have been people like that. Great critics. They could foresee the future of cinema. We should have such people. We should train such people. And that at every festival in Berlin, they have a separate session for upcoming critics.
Critics, yeah, a talent campus for critics.
They choose. This is run by Ukraine. They choose prospective film writers and then give them the opportunity to be there and then give them classes and all that. This is a very conscious move on their part.
Yeah. Hassan, shall we throw it open to the house if somebody wants to say something about Father Gaston Roberge, or ask Goutam Da and Adoor?
Maybe 1 or 2 people, maybe 2-3 people.
Yeah. So is there anybody who wants
There is one Mr. Anshuman Roy who has raised a hand.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, is it a question or some? I mean, he has something to say.
Don't know.
Yeah.
Don't know. He is not responding, so we can.
Not responding, and should we go to someone else?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone else can put the remarks in chat or raise hand so that.
So, Gautam, just an aside, does Chitrabadi have a sort of course for film writers, I mean, film criticism or film scholarship?
Well, film studies was very important, and father had taken initiative to make film studies almost compulsory at school and college level. It's very, very important that you learn what is cinema, because to become a good audience. That's why in Pune Institute they conduct a film appreciation course and many other places, that you learn about the evolution of cinema, the history of cinema in our country, cinema in the West, cinema in other countries. It's very important that you go to the theater and just watch a movie. No, you are watching the experience of a time, like Tarkovsky said, fantastic book he had written, Sculpting in Time. Because of course, cinema is sculpting in time. You manipulate time and space. But as an audience, if you know a little bit about the art of cinema, good as well, it helps. It helps that you love good cinema. You love the art of cinema. That's very, very important. And it's true that nowadays you don't find too many good writings, less than what it used to be in the 70s and 80s. There were so many Film Society magazines, and there were so many good writers. That's the problem. I know that when you publish a magazine on cinema or theater, you hardly find people to write. That's a real problem. A handful of people. We go back to the same gentleman or lady that please, write us. So I'm not blaming everybody. It's maybe the internet cultures and things like that have changed quite a lot. That you get information, so many information, but still, I think I have a favorite book called Techniques of Film Editing by Carol Rice. It was republished again, and a fantastic young filmmaker had written that this book is forever. Of course, technology of editing has changed, but the perception you can learn from this book. So it's very, very important that because a past, anything from the past is an example, concrete example, and you can learn. And that's very, very important. That film study is very important, and I'm sure that now in many universities there are film studies. People should read and write on cinema, because cinema has a dichotomy. It was born with a dichotomy of change, from silent to sound, from black and white to color, from analog to digital. It's changing, but only thing it has not. Technology has changed and perception has changed. Perception of filmmakers and the viewers. But what has not changed is a time manipulation in cinema. The cinematic time, which is fascinating. That's why we go to see movies. And now we have many platforms. But desire for making something interesting, which father taught us, or inspired us rather, through his work and books. Incredible. We must remember these lessons and go ahead with courage and wonderful vision of the world. Because cinema couldn't change the world, but cinema, in my opinion, is a great collective memories of people.
But I think Mr. Gopalakrishnan, this will be the last question. When you go to watch a classical concert, or you go to an art gallery to watch to an exhibition, you know that you are in the presence of an art form. But cinema remains a means of entertainment primarily. Despite so much happening in the last century of this medium. So why do you think that happens? Particularly in India, where cinema remains just a means of entertainment. Still. So that, like Gautam Das said, that you need people to understand that cinema is more than just entertainment. But is that change happening, you think?
I am planning to write an article about how we managed to kill Indian cinema through successive governments. Their idea of all the governments. I am not talking about the Western government, previous government also. Their idea of cinema is all centered around so-called Bollywood. Nothing else matters. Nothing else that happens in this country matters. Even to have better films made in the regions, in Bengal or Kerala or where, we had to fight a long fight. We had to fight a long fight to have these films shown on Doordarshan. And Doordarshan, so to it, they were removed as soon as it was put there. It did not even complete a year. Before that, they removed it. And this was the only program for which they did not collect any advertisements, nothing. They could have done that, but then they had to prove that they are losing so much money every week. So that is the attitude of the public television. And look at what they do with the cinema in itself. You have to show a terrible, I cannot explain it. When the thing comes on the screen, I just look away. Of a ad of a patient, of a cancer patient,
Yeah.
You cannot look at it. And now the rule is that you have to show it in the beginning, in the middle, and the end of it.
Yeah.
So that destroys the film. These people think it's a wall, a big wall, public wall for pasting all advertisements. This is the kind of treatment which cinema is being given. So first we have to educate all these people who formulate these rules. Now all through you will show there is nobody to drink, nobody all the thinking about how things should be managed. It comes as advice in this in the early time when it was introduced. Only when there is a scene of smoking in the film, you have to show these things. Today, whether you have somebody smoking or not, you have to show it. It is mandatory. It's with the power of censorship in their hands, they are trying to completely destroy this medium. And then people in Bombay, they don't consider it art or anything. It is only business for them. You ask them, the government asks them to put it here. It is put. If you put it all over, they will do that. So there's no complaint. This is what is happening. And then we are talking about and then other things. There was we all, Ronaldo, Shyam, myself, we were all members of that committee which recommended the setting up of the National Film Development Corporation. Look at it. It has been in a coma for a long time. Now I think it is dead already. We don't know anything. It has nothing to do with the filmmaking people. So this is what is being done by the government. Where, and even in its heyday, they were giving a loan at 18% interest. And happily, then except us who made our film Saibal in the beginning, nobody else returned that money. They were engaged all the time. The corporation was engaged in litigation. People who took the money. So they are more into litigation than into film. In any other country, it would have been a grant given to make a worthwhile film. And if the film makes money, then they can give it back. Then that should be condition. So we have been, our policy has been very, very wrong, because the people who have control of this thing at the time of Nehru, he appointed the extra-party commission, the inquiry committee and the film study committee, and then they have recommended many things, whatever good that came out of it, including the new cinema and the National Film Archive, Film Institute, everything came as a result of those recommendations. And then it was never followed. And all those institutions are now in real doldrums. You have to know this.
Absolutely.
The people concerned should be told, look, what you are doing is very, very wrong.
Okay, I think we should end there. Thank you, Mr. Adoor Gopalakrishnan and Mr. Goutam Ghosh for participating, and thank you, St. Xavier's College Alumni Association, for giving me the opportunity to moderate this session. This tribute to Father Gaston Roberge is obviously, it's meant to be a tribute, but when you talk about a person like him, you also touch upon other things related to cinema, because that's what he did. I mean, he talked about cinema as a means of social communication, as a form of art, as also probably entertainment, but in a clearly text. And I think, I mean, this, for me, this has been very enriching, talking to Mr. Gopalakrishnan and Goutam Da. So
May I say
thank you very much.
something?
Yeah, who's this?
I'm Arundhati
Please.
Ray, Professor Arundhati Ray
Yeah,
from
please go.
College. May I just put in a few words?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Go
Now,
ahead.
I'm from the world of academia and not from the film world at all. But Father Roberge was very closely connected with our college. And my first experience with him was unique, late 80s. We had an Irish principal, Sister Maeve, Hughes. And while I was looking into the library bookshelves, Sister calls me and introduces me to Father Roberge. And we have the first editions of English literature, and even the French editions are all the first editions. So he had primarily come to see our library, and he encouraged us to take an interest. And this is where I thought he was very unique, and nobody mentioned it, so I'm just tucking it in, that he's offering certificate courses for college students and teachers. We were thrilled, and so many of us, including myself, we enrolled there. And what a delightful and enjoyable experience it was to, for the first time, not to be looking at films, but to be involved in making films. And eventually, of course, Chitrabani helped me to make a documentary film on Loreto College centenary celebrations in 2011. I didn't meet Father then, he was old. Would have been delighted, I'm sure, to have seen what I had made. And the voiceover was done at Chitrabani. And I have the happiest memories of Father Robert, always with a smile and a twinkle in his eyes. I met him last in Victoria. Some institution was honoring him, and also at Max Muller Bhavan. But by that time, he was not always there with you, but profound and a very erudite person, real scholarship. But then the Jesuits are so cerebral, I have to admit, always. So thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to pay a little tribute to Father Roberge. Thank
you very much. Thank you very much. That was lovely. So, okay, Hassan, and can we now wrap up?
Yes, please. Please conclude it.
Yeah, so okay. So thank you everybody for your time, and particularly Goutam Ghosh and Mr. Adoor Gopalakrishnan for your insights and memories. And so bye-bye everyone. And thank you very much again.
Thanks everyone. Bye.